The strangest part about being stranded in the middle of the ocean isn't the darkness. It's realizing that, for miles in every direction, there is absolutely nowhere to go. I learned that one night when I was 17, aboard my brother-in-law Jack's boat, surrounded by people who were supposed to be having the safest, most relaxing night imaginable. We were far from land, the water was calm, the music was playing, and everyone had been drinking. There was no storm, no accident, nothing that should have made us afraid. And then two strangers appeared out of the darkness. It had started earlier that morning. I'd agreed to join Jack, a couple of his friends, and my sister for an overnight fishing trip. Jack came from money and had always lived comfortably. Ever since my sister married him, she'd had the same kind of easy life. His house sat directly beside the bay, with a small wooden dock extending from the backyard to his boat. The boat itself was much larger than anything we needed for fishing, luxurious enough to have its own barbecue grill. Painted across the side was the name Lexi, my sister's name. Jack had apparently gotten the idea from Forrest Gump. I brought a small backpack with everything I'd need for the night, then headed out with them early that morning. Jack had packed enough food for days. There were snacks everywhere, drinks, and enough hamburger meat to feed twice as many people as were actually on board. For a while, I tried to enjoy myself, but several hours into the trip, the excitement had mostly disappeared. Only one largemouth bass had been caught, and naturally, Jack had caught it. Everyone else was drinking more than they were fishing. I was 17, so my sister kept refusing to let me drink and repeatedly told me to stay away from the alcohol. At the time, I thought she was just being annoying. Looking back, I wish she'd stayed sober. The only part of the trip I genuinely enjoyed was lying on the back deck, relaxing in the sun while the boat moved slowly through the water. Then the sky began turning orange. The sun slipped toward the horizon, painting the surface of the water in fading gold. Jack fired up the grill and started cooking hamburgers, even though several fish had been caught by then. I didn't complain. By the time we finished eating, the last light had disappeared, and suddenly, the boat didn't feel quite as comfortable anymore. Being surrounded by open water at night is difficult to describe unless you've experienced it. There are no streetlights, no houses, no distant traffic, just blackness stretching in every direction. The boat becomes its own tiny world, floating in a place where, without it, you'd have almost no chance of surviving. Everyone else seemed to love it. Jack and his friends were drunk, loud, and completely carefree. Music blasted through the cabin while they shouted, laughed, and drank. My sister was more intoxicated than I'd ever seen her, although she was still more composed than the others. Eventually, they invited me inside to play Cards Against Humanity. I didn't have anything better to do, so I joined them. There was an extra beer sitting beside the small bar. I took it. At that point, I'd stopped caring whether my sister approved. After 3 beers, I finally felt relaxed enough to enjoy myself. The music had already been turned down because earlier it had become impossible to hear anyone speaking. Jack and his friends were completely wasted. Then one of them stopped laughing. He looked toward the door. What was that? I hadn't heard anything at first. Then I heard it too. A faint sound coming from outside. I immediately turned the music off. The cabin fell silent. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Then the sound came again. Voices. 2 men were calling for help. We rushed outside. I reached the side of the boat first and looked over the railing. Below us was a much smaller boat. 2 men were standing inside it, looking up at us. I asked what had happened. One of them said they were out of food and gasoline and needed help. I looked back at everyone. Something about the situation made me uncomfortable. But Jack and the others were nowhere near sober enough to make a serious decision. My sister was drunk, his friends were drunk, and Jack himself could barely stand straight. So somehow, the responsibility felt like it had fallen onto me. Jack told the men to wait while he got the ladder. He stumbled almost immediately, dropping his beer bottle as he went. I helped him carry the ladder to the side and hook it onto the railing. The 2 strangers climbed aboard. They thanked us. Jack and the others tried speaking to them, but their words were so slurred that the men could barely understand them. I apologized. They've had a little too much to drink. The 2 men didn't respond. Instead, they looked directly at Jack. Then one of them asked if we had any extra food. We took them inside. Jack grabbed the leftover hamburgers from the counter. The men ate quickly, almost mechanically. Something about the way they did it made my stomach tighten. I couldn't explain why. Jack then handed them a full gasoline can. They thanked us again. Then they climbed back down the ladder and returned to their boat. I watched until they disappeared into the darkness. For the moment, everything seemed normal again. We went to sleep. Jack and my sister took the bedroom. I was left with his two friends, sleeping on the couches and pull-out cot. For almost an hour, I tossed around on the hard couch, unable to get comfortable. Eventually, I got up for a drink and to use the bathroom. That's when I heard the motor. Jack had told us to urinate over the side of the boat to conserve the water, so I opened the door expecting nothing more than the quiet slap of waves against the hull. Instead, I heard a faint engine, a boat motor. It was distant, but unmistakable. I stood there listening. The darkness outside was almost complete. There was no way to tell exactly where the sound was coming from. I went upstairs to the controls and switched on the searchlight. A bright beam cut through the darkness and swept across the surrounding water. Nothing. I turned it roughly 90 degrees. Nothing. Another 180 degrees. Still nothing. Then I continued the sweep. 3/4 of the way around, the beam finally landed on something. The small boat. The same boat we'd helped earlier. It was coming toward us. Before I could even process what I was seeing, a scream tore through the night. It came from below. A man's scream. Raw. Sudden. Terrified. I froze for half a second before racing down to the deck. One of Jack's friends was standing pressed against the corner of the room. The other had suddenly sat upright. What happened? The man could barely speak. He was staring toward the place where he'd been sleeping. Finally, he managed to say that he'd seen two figures standing over him. Two figures. Inside the boat. Jack and my sister burst out of their bedroom. Everyone started talking at once. Then the two men ran out through the front door toward the deck. We followed. There was nobody there. I rushed toward the side and pointed toward the direction where I'd seen the small boat. The searchlight was still aimed there, but the boat was gone. Completely gone. We searched everywhere. Cabins. Storage areas. The deck. Every place where someone could have hidden or left something behind. Then we started checking our belongings. That's when we realized something was missing. A couple of gasoline cans were gone. So was Jack's wallet. And his keys. The strangers hadn't simply needed food and fuel. They had been aboard our boat. They had somehow returned after leaving. And while one of us was sleeping, they had apparently been standing over him. We had no idea how long they'd been there. The only thing we knew for certain was that we weren't alone anymore. Jack started the engine. Nobody suggested going back to sleep. We headed toward land at full speed. The trip that had taken hours to get out there became a frantic 4-hour journey home. The entire way back, nobody could explain what had happened. We kept watching the darkness behind us. Nothing followed. Eventually, the lights of land appeared. When we finally reached Jack's house, he used the spare key hidden in the backyard to get inside. We expected to find signs that someone had broken in. There were none. The doors were intact. Nothing obvious had been disturbed. But that didn't make us feel better. It only made the missing keys more disturbing. The next day, Jack and my sister had all the locks changed. For a while, that seemed like the end of it. It wasn't. For the next few days, nobody really knew what to make of the incident. There was no proof of exactly what the two men had intended. Maybe they had genuinely been stranded. Maybe asking for food and gasoline had been part of a plan. Maybe they'd simply seen an opportunity when they realized everyone on the boat was drunk. But one detail kept bothering me. They hadn't just taken fuel. They had taken Jack's wallet and his keys. And someone had seen two figures standing over him while he slept. That meant they had returned. Somehow, we had watched their boat leave. I had personally seen it disappear into the darkness. Then, later that night, I had seen the same boat approaching again. And immediately afterward, one of Jack's friends screamed that two people had been standing over him. There was no satisfying explanation. Still, life eventually returned to normal. Weeks passed. The incident became something we talked about less and less. Then Jack and my sister's security cameras caught something. It happened at their house. Two suspicious men wearing hoods approached the front door. They didn't walk up like ordinary visitors. They stayed near the entrance and appeared to be trying to unlock the door, but they couldn't get inside. After several moments, they suddenly left. They didn't knock. They didn't ring the bell. They didn't wait for anyone to answer. They simply walked away. When Jack and my sister watched the footage, they immediately thought about the boat. Two men, two strangers, two people who had once been given gasoline, food, and access to their boat. And now two hooded men were standing at their front door, apparently trying to get inside. Nobody could prove they were the same people. There was no clear identification, no confession, No explanation, just the footage. But considering what had happened before, Jack and my sister became convinced that the men from the boat had somehow found their way back to them. And that was the part that frightened me most. Because the boat had been far from land. The men had supposedly been stranded. We had helped them. We had given them exactly what they claimed to need. Then they disappeared. Later, they somehow returned to our boat, entered while we were sleeping, frightened one of the passengers, and took Jack's keys. Weeks after that, 2 hooded men appeared outside his home. It was as if the encounter on the water hadn't ended when we reached shore. It had only moved somewhere else. And even now, there is one question I can't answer. Why did they come back? I've replayed that night in my head more times than I can count. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't heard the voices outside the boat. What if we'd ignored them? What if Jack hadn't given them the ladder? What if we hadn't handed over the gasoline and food? And most importantly, what if I hadn't seen their boat returning through the searchlight? Because that moment changed everything. Until then, they had been 2 strangers asking for help. After that, they became something else. I still remember sweeping the searchlight across the water. 90 degrees. Nothing. 180. Nothing. Then, toward the end of the sweep, the beam found them. The boat was coming toward us. And almost immediately, someone screamed below. That timing is impossible for me to forget. We never found the men. We never discovered where they went after the second encounter. We never figured out how they managed to get back onto the boat without anyone noticing. And we never recovered Jack's wallet or keys. The only physical evidence we ever had was what the security cameras captured weeks later. 2 men in hoods, standing at the front door, trying to unlock it, failing, then leaving. Jack and my sister were about 99% certain those were the same men we'd encountered on the water. But certainty isn't proof. And that's what makes the story so disturbing. There was never a clean explanation. No dramatic confrontation. No police arriving at the perfect moment. No final discovery that tied everything together. Just a series of events that seemed to become more disturbing the longer we thought about them. 2 strangers appeared in the middle of the night, claiming they had run out of food and fuel. We helped them. They left. Then they returned. 2 figures appeared inside the boat while everyone was asleep. Someone screamed. The men vanished. Fuel, a wallet, and keys disappeared. And weeks later, 2 hooded men appeared at Jack's home. Maybe they were the same people. Maybe they weren't. But if they were, then the most frightening part wasn't what happened on that boat. It was the possibility that, from the moment we helped those 2 strangers, they had already learned enough about us to find us again. And somewhere in the darkness that night, while we were laughing, drinking, and convinced we were completely alone, 2 men had already discovered exactly how vulnerable we were. That's the part one still can't shake. Because sometimes the people you choose to help are strangers. And sometimes, you don't realize until much later that they were never really strangers at all.